that, Rich. Japan and Mexico, really cool art that they've got going on as well. Just brief shout out to that. Now, Hyuma Hara of Japan, I mean, look at accomplishments. World's Top 16 2024, all of these accomplishments from 2024 indeed, and also showing that they can do the closed team sheet best of one format with that global challenge to second place, as well as the open team sheet best of three. And in terms of the team, really like to see this Mirror Herb Incineroar here. This is a tech that's been picking up. We saw it quite a lot at the Latin America International Championships recently, alongside its first partner buddy Rillaboom, Dragonite, Golden Go, Electabuzz, and Annihilate.
Yes, and I'm really interested to see the Annihilate with the Focus Sash here, and there's a couple of different sets that you see with the Annihilate, but it's either the fun Choice Scarf one-shot move, or we're going for a more bulky, slower coaching Annihilate here, so really able to boost the defenses of whichever Pokemon you're fancying. And though, yes, it increases some attack, the important part is increasing some defense there, so if Dragonite's getting some drops from Scale Shots, doesn't particularly matter. We're just going to coaching boost that right the way up, so we've got a very, very bulky, strong looking team. And again, the favourite fake outs and parting shots to be able to cycle out, really gaining some ball control, whilst you've got your important Pokemon like your Golden Goes and your Dragonites able to buff themselves up here. Electabuzz able to support and redirect any moves away. It's going to be a real hard hitting game, but maybe a slightly slower start for Hyuma here.
Yeah, perhaps. I think coaching is such a nice move because, of course, you might use coaching when your partner Pokemon is a special attacker, but it's still benefiting from the physical defense boost. And, of course, that's not the only boosting going on Hyuma's team. What with Dragonite and Scale Shot is such an interesting move. It's arguably one of the most powerful that we have in Regulations at H, but it does have a chance to miss. But also, of course, you have to hit a Pokemon in order to get those boosts. Whereas normally, if your opponent protects, they are making themselves vulnerable to your Pokemon setting up for free. If they protect in the face of Scale Shot, then no damage happens, but also no setting up happens, and the loaded dice very important in order to ensure that that move hits 4 times at least.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to see some real devastating amounts of damage here. I like the adaptation of the Thunderbolt on the Electabuzz, not only allowing for the spread move to reduce speed, but also able to deal that bit more damage and able to potentially take some KOs that the Electro Web might not actually be able to kind of take out here. So there's a lot that's going on with this team, both offensively and defensively here. So I believe I'll be ready to see the second team, which will be David Soto.
Yeah, why don't we take a look at David Soto's team, of course, representing Mexico as we showcased in the previous game. Now, we've got a repeated piece here in the form of the Incineroar, this one holding a Citrus Berry, but otherwise this team is looking a whole lot like LAIC winning team, piloted by Marco Silva, of course, our first repeat winner of an International Championships, and first person to win 3 International Championships total. It's going to be Chumpluff and Torkoal and Charizard alongside that Incineroar, as well as Porygon 2 and Ursaluna. And it's, you know, you've got 3 pieces here that scream slow with Torkoal and Porygon 2 and Ursaluna. You've got 2 that scream fast with Jumpluff and Charizard. Then you've got Incineroar that sort of likes to occupy that middle ground. I think it's always a mark of a really well-built, constructed team to have both modes available to you, alongside the supportive piece in the Incineroar that enables either one to work well. That, I mean, Charizard with the choice specs in the sun with the solar power ability, even not very effective hits in inverted commas, is still dealing massive damage with the fire type moves.
Yeah, and I believe that we'll find that with a lot of these Pokemon here. Some might refer to this kind of team as the end game raid boss here. The fact that you've got to be able to really accurately predict what sort of leads that David is going to be bringing to these games. If you lead wrong, then you can be put on the back foot very early on. Porygon 2, a ridiculously bulky Pokemon that's very hard to KO in one turn, that enables Ursaluna so well, whilst in the other side of things, as you mentioned, if you don't believe that someone's bringing a Jumpluff along, and even if you do, the fake out will not be stopping the Jumpluff from being able to get up its tailwind due to that covert cloak. So it's a very threatening team from not even turn 1, turn 0 in terms of picking the teams. It's just absolutely insane amounts of damage. And I've got to shout out my favourite move in the game, Heat Wave. Devastating amount of damage, burn chance, but it does also have that miss chance. And as we saw in the previous games, it can potentially be very game changing. So if you're happy to, Charlie, I am more than excited to jump into game 1 here.
Oh, go on then, Rich. Let's do it. So here we go. Jumpluff and Torkoal versus Dragonite and Incineroar over on Hyuma's side of the field. So the Torkoal will be setting up the sun, enabling Jumpluff to move so much faster thanks to its chlorophyll ability. And Incineroar, of course, we don't have a safety goggles either side of the field, so unlike in some situations, could well be vulnerable to a sleep powder. But it's an immediate switch out from that Torkoal thanks to the eject pat. The Intimidate, of course, giving it a stat drop, and the way the eject pack works is whenever you receive a stat drop, you are able to pivot out and right into this Ursaluna, which is really nice because at the end of this turn, it will get that boost from its Flame Orb.
Yes, absolutely. So this puts David in a very, very positive position to begin with. And as you said, the leads are so important during this, as now David has the capacity to get a chlorophyll boosted Tailwind up to ensure that they maintain speed control, even against a Pokemon like Dragonite, which does actually boost its own speed by using that very infamous, famous, whatever you prefer to say, potential missing scale shot. So David's adjusted and looked at this team and gone, okay, I think that this is going to be the safest lead possible. And I believe they've done a very good job at reading into this. A safe lead, getting both your weather control and almost guaranteeing your speed, is going to put Hyuma, I believe, slightly on the back foot, having to think, how can I really adjust to such a dynamic lead?
Yeah, David has been able to achieve so much on just turn 0 there, what with all the pivoting around and pressure exerted on Hyuma's side. Incineroar is deciding to try and exert some of that pressure right back, getting even scarier than it once was, becoming a Terra Ghost type. Dragonite just decides to scout out this turn from behind its safe Protect shield here. As for the Jumpluff, attempting to connect one of its moves down into that Dragonite, possibly a Sleep Powder, just to prevent one of those very threatening scale shots. It's immediately on the offensive for this Ursaluna, so headlong rush there, bringing Incineroar down to just below half its health and softening itself up as well. And the Flare Blitz, very super effective into the Jumpluff. Of course, there's no Focus Sash, just holding the Covert Cloak. So Jumpluff now down, one of David's pieces already down and out, before it could even achieve anything on the field, given that the Dragonite protected in its face. But there it is, that's that Flame Orb, boosting up the guts ability of David's Ursaluna.
Yes, and I'd like to kind of bring up this point that you made there. Jumpluff going down, opting to go for the Sleep Powder into the Dragonite slot rather than setting up Tailwind, so allowing Pokemon like Dragonite to remain faster than the Ursaluna here. Though yes, Ursaluna is now boosted and a very heavy threat. It did reduce its stats by clicking Headlong Rush into that Incineroar, hoping to take a one-turn KO here. So though David lost the Pokemon, yes, I do believe David is in a very strong position, now bringing out this Charizard with this Choice Specs on it, running Dragon Pulse, and noting that Terra has been committed to Incineroar. Charizard does present a very big threat to this Dragonite, which could well be a key component in Hyuma actually being able to take out David's team here. Dragonite able to extreme speed out some smaller HP ranges, but also again Scale Shot, bringing up their own speed to match everything. Now we're not having to worry about Tailwind going up. It's a very interesting adaptation from Hyuma and a very good safe read with a Protect.
Yeah, and Facade is going to be hitting so much for incredible damage here. Incineroar is now going to be immediately down after the Heat Wave. Dragonite with its multi-scale broken, and that means it's going to be taking a whole lot more damage from any incoming attack. But here is that infamous Scale Shot. We're interesting to see if David has trained their Charizard just to be able to take a Scale Shot with 4 hits. 5 hits looks like it might be a bit dicey, no pun intended. It is just going to be the 4 there. So Dragonite getting the boost to its speed, dropping its defenses, but at this point it doesn't matter. The Ursaluna just gets free reign to go for one of these massive Facades. Dragonite down and out, the boosts not mattering one bit. Just goes to show David, even though losing a Pokemon so early on, having the Ursaluna and the Charizard next to each other in this position, just exerting so much pressure. Although the Charizard isn't going to be too much longer for this match, its health is so dwindled and it's losing HP at the end of each turn thanks to Solar Power.
Yes, and it's really nice to see from David's side, whether it's calced or not, that Charizard actually living after taking 4 of those devastating Scale Shots and living on a marginal amount of HP. It means that Charizard is still going to be presenting a threat through this turn as well. It's really important, I believe it's really important actually, because David already lost a Pokemon earlier, so that would have forced both players to be on a 2v2 kind of situation right now. But because this is a 3 versus 2, I feel like David is potentially able to kind of play a little bit more risky, knowing that Charizard is going down. But if it's not dealt with by a faster move from either of Hyuma's Pokemon here, Charizard's just going to continue to click Heat Wave, and there's no defensive terrors available for Hyuma's side of the board. So Charizard remaining on such a small HP is so crucial for David to be able to put on immense amounts of pressure in the sun. This Heat Wave is going to deal some damage if it's able to hit.
Certainly could, but of course you've got to contend with the Fake Out coming out from the Rillaboom, and we know that the Charizard can't protect. The Ursaluna incredibly threatened here by a priority Grassy Glide that could come out from Rillaboom, therefore going for its Terrestrialization, taking a leaf out of Incineroar's book. going for the Terra Ghost typing. This means it's not going to take any damage at all from fighting or normal type moves, the fighting having been super effective in the face of the Annihilate. Not going to be a fake out, just the Grassy Glide right into that Charizard. Covers for a switch that David might have been able to make there, and responding with the Annihilate going for coaching here. So Rillaboom even more threatening than it was before, both in terms of its attack and its defense.
Yes, and I really like that play from Hyuma, as knowing that A, David hadn't committed any Terras anywhere, and then B, the Terra Ghost potential on the Ursaluna, rather than going for a slower Protect turn, opting to instead buff up the Rillaboom, knowing that Ursaluna is a physical threat, is going to be able to do less damage to the Rillaboom, and I believe we see that actually come into effect. The defense boost onto the Rillaboom means that it's able to take that hit and continue to play on through this next turn here, so really, really giving Hyuma as many options as possible for what could be the last couple of turns here, having a boosted attack Rillaboom and boosted defense to ensure that it's living some of these shots.
Yeah, David's showing a really interesting game plan here. Content to bring the Ursaluna even though you don't have access to Trick Room, having not brought the Porygon 2 to this game. Just knowing that, and he's been proving that even outside of Trick Room, the Ursaluna is applying so much pressure, doesn't necessarily need to be in the environment. And as you picked up on before, Rich, the tail would not set up by the jump off, so really the Ursaluna couldn't be much slower here. You've got two very slow Pokemon over on David's side of the field. Are they going to be able to withstand the onslaught coming out from Hyuma's side? The Rillaboom does indeed have access to the high horsepower, which would be super effective into the Torkoal, but no, Torkoal just going to retreat into its shell here behind a Protect Shield. Now all eyes onto this Ursaluna and what it's going to be able to achieve in this turn.
Yes, protecting the Torkoal is very, very important there, as it's such a devastating Pokemon with horrible moves to try and deal with, such as Eruption in this Sun boost here. Knowing that it's a danger there, it just allows Ursaluna to absolutely roam free, taking out the Rillaboom. Probably wouldn't have been able to live much from that Ursaluna with its Guts boost there, leaving this little Annihilate that could, noting that it does actually have its Focus Sash still completely intact, so two moves do need to successfully hit into the Annihilate before it's able to go down.
Probably an indication of its training as well, not the bulkiest Annihilate, holding that Focus Sash. Rage Fist is super effective, but it hasn't taken any damage, and therefore not as powerful as it could be. The Annihilate already down to 1 HP, leaving the Torkoal free reign. I think something crucial here is that on the previous turn, the Torkoal protected into both attacks that were coming its way. So that was really well called by David, having enough resources in the back pocket to now be able to secure this game for David. So well played to both trainers. Seems like the LAIC Champs team is paying dividends once more.
Yes, absolutely. That was really, really interesting to watch it go, and the fact that David was actually able to play through that game without their Tailwind boost up, so naturally being slower and able to position their team in such a way so that Hyuma is almost on the back foot and having to read where the attacks are going to be coming from through that. It just goes to show the level of play that both the team, like you mentioned, but also the player are kind of at, really trying to show their best for this Victory World Cup win. You couldn't really ask for more on that kind of sense. It's actually fantastic.
Yeah, certainly not. And it's incredible as well that David was still able to claim so much ground despite losing the Jumpluff on the very first turn. You can only bring 4 Pokemon to a game, and with it already being down and out, it seemed like maybe just in terms of sheer Pokemon numbers, Hyuma would have the advantage. But no, it was, and it just goes to show how powerful the team is, that it can still claw something back, and 1 HP infinitely more than 0, enabling David to claim the win there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very, very keen to see how these players will adjust from that previous game. So, Charlie, let's jump into game 2.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rich. It's going to be a definite switch up here. Charizard and Jumpluff instead coming out for David. And over on Hyuma's side, the Dragonite and the Annihilate this time. Perhaps there's a Torkoal just lurking in the back. You could switch it in for either of those slots, giving the Jumpluff a speed boost thanks to its Chlorophyll, or Charizard a power boost thanks to its Solar Power.
Yes, and I love this game that we play now. David, again, immediately putting pressure on with such a game-changing move as Sleep Powder. Sleep turns are so important and randomly decided in this game, so taking out that Jumpluff was very, very crucial game 1, so I'm keen to understand if Hyuma is going to be going into that Jumpluff slot again, but you can't leave that Charizard unattended. If you do, we saw the damage that it dealt last game, so it's a really, really interesting position that David's gone with these leads, as you don't want to risk those sleep turns whatsoever, Charlie.
Not sure I've ever heard Charizard described in terms of baggage there, Rich. You certainly don't want to leave it unattended, and I love it. And switching out will be the Annihilate coming in for the Incineroar instead. This Intimidate drop not going to matter at all in face of these two special attackers, but worth noting that Jumpluff actually doesn't have any kind of attacks on it. So if it were just the Jumpluff standing, it wouldn't be able to secure the game. It can't deal any damage. Incineroar, not used to taking a nap, it often will hold the safety goggles, but this one certainly will do, not holding that item at all. Scale Shot now connecting down into the Jumpluff. Seems like, again, the Jumpluff, just like in the previous game, going to be able to take this really quite well, and even with the 5 hits, is going to be able to hang on here. Dragonite, though, will get a speed boost. Again, you could switch in that Talk Off from the back if you really want to prioritize moving first on the next turn with your Jumpluff, but as it is, this Incineroar taking a snooze, and Hyuma already on the back foot, but of course, Intimidate still activates whether your Pokemon's asleep or not.
Yes, absolutely. So we do know that Incineroar will take 1 guaranteed turn of sleep, as it didn't actually try to move that turn due to entering now. So David knows that they have 1 turn with only having to deal with a Dragonite here, so I would love to see that Torkoal come in to set the sun and then be able to boost up that Jumpluff enough to get a speedier Sleep Powder onto the Dragonite. I'd love to see some more Tailwind going on, as last game that was played, it was so well fought, and that was without the Tailwind from David's side. So Hyuma, as you mentioned, really on the back foot here and having to make some really key calls as to what's going to be going on here.
Charizard too important a piece to leave vulnerable to something like Dragonite's Scale Shot here, so instead coming in for David will be the Ursaluna. It's certainly a Pokemon that's known for its defensive bulk, but Jumpluff, the same cannot be said for it. Extreme Speed, easily enough to secure the knockout there. Has it done enough already in this game with the sleep on the Incineroar? It's certainly done more than it did in the previous game, going down without any kind of attack. Of course, also what this means switching in the Ursaluna there is you get the burn immediately at the end of the turn that it switches in, as opposed to having to protect and buy some time that way. So it's already ready to deal out massive damage, and here comes the Porygon 2 joining the field, Pokemon that wasn't brought in the previous game. The Mirror Herb, though, over on the Incineroar, copying the stat boost that the Porygon 2 received. Remains to be seen whether that was special attack or physical attack. Seems like David, this game, leaning more into the Trick Room setup, and there isn't even a Torkoal in the back, therefore.
Yes, but I really do like this adaptation here. Bringing that silly little rotating duck is such a different way of playing, and now we understand why David was potentially looking at going for the Sleep Powder turns rather than prioritizing setting up Trick Room. Setting up the Sleep Powder and allowing Jumpluff to go down means that there is a much safer turn into clicking that Trick Room button. So now Hyuma's going to have to hope that Incineroar wakes up, because that kitty could well be very sleepy. But then if you leave the Ursaluna unattended, then that's going to do devastating damage to the Dragonite, which has had its multi-scale broken already. So it's going to be interesting to see what Hyuma thinks is going to be the right series of plays against David in this turn.
Yeah, really crucial point that, Rich. I think you've got 2 very bulky Pokemon over on David's side of the field, so actually neither of them mind taking a Scale Shot quite as much as some of the other Pokemon that David has up their sleeve. Scale Shot now connecting down into this Ursaluna. We know already that it's going to be able to hang around with about half of its HP. That's more than enough to respond with a massive facade. Of course, Earthquake going to be mitigated in its damage thanks to the grassy terrain set up by the Rillaboom here, and just a switch in, so we'll have to see if that was catching David off guard, even though, of course, Dragonite Flying type wouldn't take any damage from ground type moves. Critical hit, it looks like, onto the Dragonite there. Facade easily enough. The Ursaluna pretty threatened now, as it was in the previous game, by this grassy terrain, perhaps Hyuma wanting to bait out the Terrestrialization from Ursaluna.
Yes, and that's a very nice point that you've made there. The Ursaluna already being quite low, and though the grassy terrain does help regenerate some health, the bird is still going to be constantly chipping down, so remaining nearly net neutral on the kind of health regeneration from that, it's going to be a really scary position, and potentially forcing out that terror on something that might not want to be terroring, just to try and keep that Ursaluna alive, because it is very bulky, and losing another Pokemon would mean that the last Pokemon left for David is that Charizard in the back that we saw, which is naturally very fast. So this Ursaluna is very important to keep alive, and taking out that Incineroar means that, as you mentioned, Sleepy Kitty still quite scary, meaning the bear is ever so slightly going to be dealing less damage. So really interesting bring in for Hyuma here, just to mitigate as much damage as possible onto this Ursaluna.
Will Incineroar wake up from its cat nap? It has burnt 1 turn of sleep at least, previous turn when it was on the field, seeming to angle for a fake out here. Trick Room, though, set up. Ursaluna, will it even be able to take a Grassy Glide, even if it does Terrastallize? I might expect so, but then at the end of the turn, you've got burn plus grassy terrain. It might be hanging on at a very small amount of HP. One thing's for certain, though, David, with the Charizard in the back, a much faster option, will be wanting to pilot that outside of the Trick Room conditions. And here it is, sure enough, Terrestrialization coming out, switching up the typings of this Ursaluna, becoming a ghost once more.
And we are going to see this is David doing their best to ensure that Ursaluna is able to survive this turn. We don't want it to get knocked out as it's able to deal such insane amounts of damage. Fake Out actually going into the Porygon 2. Poor little duck getting hit by a gorilla. That's absolutely devastating to see. But importantly, the Porygon 2 actually has Ice Beam, which heavily threatens the Rillaboom there, hitting for super effective. Headlong Rush coming out into the Incineroar, taking it out. Sleepy Kitty doesn't get a chance to move here. But now, with a defense drop from Ursaluna's move being used there, it puts it within a very, very scary position of potentially a Grassy Glide might be able to take a KO just because of this reduction in stats here.
It could well do. I think if you're David here, you're about to see the Annihilate hitting the field, and you've got to be targeting that down. You know you have your Charizard in the back, and the Rillaboom can't really touch it. It has Grass-type moves, which Charizard doubly resists. It also has high horsepower Ground-type move, which it takes no damage from, and then Fake Out, which is only going to work on your first turn. So if David can get this to a position where it's just the Charizard, albeit in Trick Room or not, versus the Rillaboom, then that could be a key to victory. So targeting down on this Annihilate, which, as we said, is not the bulkiest of variants, holding the Focus Sash here. So let's see how David decides to play this.
Yes, and what I really liked to see was Hyuma actually taking their time before sending out the Annihilate there, really trying to break down what their best game plan is, ensuring that they're not only running out turn timer, but also the switch timer there. It shows that Hyuma knows they need to properly analyse what's going to be going on here and ensure that they know their lines into what they're doing to be able to take the game from David here in favoured terrain, being Trick Room. It's really, really scary to be playing, so I just really, really like that. I wanted to highlight that level of experience that Hyuma has, knowing that they do have time. They can double the amount of times they've got to think about what they're going to be doing against these two Pokemon here. Just really wanted to highlight that. I know it's not the most common thing that you'd be seeing in some of these games. Some players like to lock in very, very quickly, but Hyuma's patience with it shows their level of play, and we're going to see the Terra coming out onto the Annihilate there, going for the Stellar Terra, so trying to deal as much damage as possible and potentially take out one of or both of the Pokemon in this turn is the intention.
Well navigated with that tongue twister there, Rich. Yes, Stellar Terra, bit of a mouthful, but Ursaluna is going to be having none of it this turn, just keeping itself safe with the Protect here. Yeah, Hyuma putting all the eggs into the Stellar Terra Annihilate basket here. Going for that as the Ice Beam connects into the Annihilate. Takes it really pretty well here. Seems to therefore be a boost to the physical attack rather than special attack onto the Porygon 2. That close combat from the Annihilate,
wow.
That is damage that you cannot ignore. The Annihilate now even more softened up thanks to the defense boost here. Porygon 2 going to the back. We know again that it's going to be the Charizard lurking in the back, and to be honest, I don't think you mind this too much if you're David. You don't have the too much potential to stall out the Trick Room going on if you're Hyuma's side of the field here. The Annihilate cannot protect, the Rillaboom cannot protect. So in comes the Charizard here, and it's pretty free to just dish out these Heat Waves. You don't really mind about the dwindling turns of Trick Room.
No, not at all. And now Hyuma's again having to really, really think out these turns, knowing the speed order of these Pokemon will likely be without any priority. Ursaluna should be moving first here, so will we have to try and knock out the Ursaluna to then ensure that Annihilate will be able to take a hit onto the Charizard? How are both of these Pokemon trained, as the Charizard would likely be very fast, but as you say, if it's a frailer version of the Annihilate, depending on the training of the Charizard, we could see some really dynamic turns here. You cannot ignore the Heat Waves that will be coming out from this absolute monster of a Gen 1 dragon.
Certainly is, but just like with the Rillaboom, the Annihilate doesn't threaten it down with too much damage either, given the moves in its arsenal. It's going to resist close combat, it will take neutral from the Rage Fist, and it's been hit once by that Ice Beam, so that could come into play here. Charizard against the world, but we've seen stranger things than a Charizard taking it to a victory. Going to be boosted by the Terrastellar as well, this Rage Fist. Is it going to be enough? Oh, the Charizard hangs on with the invisible Focus Sash here. Heat Wave connecting now, but it's not enough to pick out the knockout. And even if it got the burn there, it seems like the Charizard on such low HP, it would still just be going down. So it seems like, in fact, yes, the Terrastellar on Hyuma's Annihilate and saving that Rage Fist for that one-time type boost was just enough. Woodhammer just for good measure, and we are indeed going to a Game 3.
Wow, okay, I I need to be completely forthright. I did not think that the Charizard would be able to live that Annihilate, an absolutely devastating Pokemon to be sat against, and living on that, what must have been that, like you say, invisible Focus Sash, 1 HP left, and the Heat Wave not quite able to clean up the rest. That's the one drawback that we have when you see a choice-locked item Pokemon. You can't be clicking Protect, so it's all or nothing. So that poor Charizard that was able to deal ridiculous amounts of damage under that Trick Room condition still wasn't able to stall out the Trick Room turns, able to then make use of its natural speed to take out the rest of them. So the choice specs dealing incredible damage, but just not quite enough in this instance here, Charlie.
Yeah, it's interesting that the game where David set up the Trick Room was also the game that wasn't successful. It will be, one would expect that heading into Game 3 would be angling for the same kind of game plan as David was using in Game 1, as opposed to setting up that Trick Room there. But then, how does Hyuma retaliate to that as well? Especially with slightly less conventional sets. We have seen this Terrastellar Annihilate slightly on the rise, but the chances are that Hyuma's got more practice against David's kind of team, it being such a popular team right now, than perhaps the other way around. So that could play in their favour. It's sort of now coming down to another best of one, and it's going to be so exciting. Just which trainer is going to be able to be thinking those few turns ahead that they need to be.
Yes, absolutely. It's just, again, a game of matchup roulette, so I believe we are ready to jump into Game 3. I'm really keen to see how both players are going to adjust, knowing how each other play, so let's jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. It might be a sort of best of one that ends the best of 3, but at the end of the day, as you say, Rich, they have so much more information than they didn't before about how their opponent is playing. Jumpluff and Charizard, which is the lead that we saw coming out in Game 2 for David, alongside Golden Go and Rillaboom now, so a complete switch up here for Hyuma. Golden Go really not liking the look of the heat coming out from the other side of the field.
Yes, so bringing out the Charizard immediately puts on a lot of pressure onto Hyuma's side of the board. Both Pokemon not wanting to take a single Fire-type attack, but both Pokemon can't Terra, so there's going to be some very, very defensive plays here from Hyuma to be able to ensure that both their Pokemon will not be knocked out, whilst still having to make sure that you're able to kind of position yourself a little better than you are currently positioned in this turn. The Fake Out pressure is immediately there, and again, we're looking at a choice specs locked Charizard, so a Fake Out into that slot would give Hyuma a much safer turn to be able to then adjust to have the ball set that they'd be looking for in this.
Well, it's going to be Rillaboom switching out first of all, the grassy terrain having been set up. Joining the field for Hyuma here is going to be the Incineroar. Again, this attack stat drop does not matter. Over on the special attacking Charizard on David's side of the field, and Jumpluff that cannot dish out any attacks at all. Terastallization, let's get Sparkly early on in this game, trainers. Going to be Charizard this time, going for the Terra Ghost, which is really interesting. Going to be much more vulnerable to a Shadow Ball, for example, that could be coming out from the Golden Go, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Golden Go at least going for a Protect here, or responding to Terastallization. Going to be the Protect. It does have Dragon Terror, this Golden Go, so would be able to resist the Fire-type moves. Sunny day, though, coming out from the Jumpluff. Love to see this. It means that you don't necessarily have to switch in and out your Torkoal. You can just click that button and switch the weather to your own advantage. Heat Wave connecting down into Incineroar, and look at that. Even though it's a not very effective hit, that Incineroar nearly down to half HP.
Wow, that is such incredible amounts of damage you'd expect to see on not a Heat Wave coming out from a Charizard, but that just goes to show the raw power that this starter Pokemon does actually have. I really, really liked Hyuma's lead there, and the fact that they did switch out into the Incineroar hitting the board. David read into the idea of Fake Out hitting into the Charizard just to slow that turn down by 1, less damage going out and allowing Golden Go to actually absolutely roam free. The fact that Terra's been committed so early, and I love the fact that you said, let's get Sparkly, that has resonated with me so nicely. Now David doesn't have any other defensive Terra types, so depending on what's in the back, it's going to put a lot more pressure on David to be able to position a little bit better, knowing that they don't have that element of surprise of changing types to really be able to live some of these crucial hits coming out.
Here comes the responding Terra. Speaking of crucial hits, this Terra is going to be crucial on the Golden Go. It's embracing the Draconian side of life here. It will now be resisting Fire-type damage as opposed to taking super effective. Has David stepped on the gas a little bit too early, perhaps? Well, looks like that might have been a Sleep Powder trying to connect down into the Incineroar that was dodged. Crucially here, Heatwave still dealing huge damage, and now the Golden Go just has a chance to have its snack, to chow down with its Dragon Maws onto that Citrus Berry. Dragon's Maw, remember Regidrago? That's coming back soon, can't wait for that. As it is, Golden Go time to have a light bulb moment, boosting up its special attack by 2 stages. Could have been the super effective Shadow Ball. Who needs it? You've got the knockoff, providing a critical hit from the Incineroar, super effective, into the Charizard, that key damaging piece on David's side down, as well as the Terrestrialization.
Wow, so Golden Go not even having to show off and go, yeah, I'm a Dragon type and you're really not. Incineroar actually doing the damage onto the Charizard and taking it out means that Golden Go is able to just go for such a safe buff there, able to tank that Heat Wave even whilst Sun boosted so nicely, and that just really goes to show why players love to run defensive Terra types like this. Love a snack on a Citrus Berry, bring it back up to about 70% HP. We're really going to be able to take some good hits from this Ursaluna before it gets its buff from the Flame Orb here, so Jumpluff is going to have to really put in some work to ensure that its partner Pokemon are able to stay safe, so those sleep powders may well matter now more than ever.
Yeah, Jumpluff, it's a Pokemon that's easy to ignore because it doesn't have the potential to dish out any damage over onto the opposing side of the field, but if you do, then it can just secure the game for you. I've had many a game where Jumpluff putting things to sleep has actually turned the game around from what could have been a losing situation. And so, Ursaluna out on the field, as it has done so masterfully in the previous 2 games, threatening down so much damage, the Incineroar not liking the look of that one little bit, running back to its trainer for Rillaboom to come back in and provide an active Fake Out.
Now, I really like this, the fact that we have Fake Out Pressure immediately available, as opposed to the previous games. Ursaluna does not have the capacity to run a Terra Ghost right now, so it's going to be very subjective to these Fake Outs from both the Incineroar and the Rillaboom. Rillaboom notably being immune to Sleep Powder as well, so it really puts Jumpluff in a position where that little ball of fluff might well get blown away from the sheer power that Hyuma's about to be able to dish out.
Yeah, Hyuma calling that well there, protecting the Golden Go in the face of Ursaluna's attack, and the Grassy Terrain mitigating the damage that could be coming out from Earthquake from this Ursaluna here. Rillaboom, you can protect to get around this Fake Out onto the Ursaluna, but David now, it's a game of dancing around, trying to limit the advantage that Hyuma's been able to get there from knocking out the Charizard here. And how do you deal with this Terra Dragon Golden Go? Well, the Ursaluna is going to be a crucial part of that, so you need to remove that from the field as soon as you can.
But then from David's perspective, keeping this Ursaluna dealing damage and ensuring that its biggest threats are removed is going to be really important. But Ursaluna is actually facing down 2 Pokemon that it does not usually want to. A special attacking Golden Go will deal big damage, and the Rillaboom able to hit a big Wood Hammer into it. So preserving the little ball of fluff that we all love, switching in the Incineroar to reduce the amount of damage that's going to be dealt by the Rillaboom here, making use of Grumpy Guy's Intimidate ability, and Ursaluna going for a very safe protect, trying to understand exactly where Hyuma's priorities lie at the moment.
Incineroar now coming in, providing that active Fake Out here over onto the other side of the field, and of course Hyuma's Golden Go now susceptible to that, no longer being a Ghost type. Both Pokemon did target into the Ursaluna. The Incineroar still takes a huge amount of damage from that Make It Rain, which of course had been boosted up by the Nasty Plot. Now the Golden Go at just +1 of its special attack here. The Ursaluna, you cannot Terrastallize away from this Grass-type weakness. At least you've mitigated the damage output thanks to the Intimidate from the Incineroar. It looks like this, heading into this turn, it's going to be a pretty crucial one in this game, and it looks like it could be one where Hyuma could just push the advantage and maybe claim this set for Japan.
Yes, absolutely. And let me say, I'm going to have to grab an antihistamine after this. The amount of cats that are coming in and out of this game is genuinely incredible. And it just goes to show the sheer power and advantage that just having an Incineroar can actually bring. Being able to reduce the amount of damage that this Ursaluna is doing by cycling out the Intimidates over and over again and maintaining that pressure with Fake Out, while simultaneously allowing your Golden Go to recover HP. Again, very important that Golden Go is one of the biggest damage dealers that Hyuma's has set up after clicking Nasty Plot a couple of turns ago, I believe. Though they've taken 1 debuff, yes, it really shows that we need to reduce the amount of damage this Ursaluna is dealing. Flare Blitz dealing not quite enough to take out this other kitty cat. We're having a cat scrap here now.
We certainly are. And I think with Rillaboom going to the back there, it's a really good play from Hyuma. David just targeting into the Golden Go because you have to. The chances are you're not going to target down into the Rillaboom slot with a ground-type move. Could go for the Facade, of course, but then switching in the Incineroar, pretty safe there, but it's the Golden Go, as we were talking about earlier, that is threatening David's side of the field so much. So just Hyuma really now seems to be on the front foot able to call David a little bit more. Pokemon is a game of working out your game plan. It's a game of imperfect information and trying to make it more perfect as the game goes on. Hyuma has lots of information now. You've removed a crucial piece over on David's side of the field. So now you can pivot around with more confidence, knowing how to see the game through to a victory.
Yes, absolutely, and it's really, really good to know that David does still have that jump bluff in the back, so this speed control is going to be so vital to ensure that the Ursaluna is able to still maintain dealing damage, but not take the crucial hits from such scary Pokemon like this Golden Go. Again, I cannot stress enough, Golden Go will deal ridiculous amounts of damage into anything. We saw the amount of pressure it puts onto an Incineroar, which is a resisted hit. Going for a very safe protect here on the Ursaluna, taking a hit from the Golden Go here. Excuse me, sorry.
No worries, that's parting shot coming out onto Hyuma's Incineroar there. So mitigating its damage output and enabling David to now pivot this jump bluff in. It cannot deal any damage, but it can put things to sleep. It can redirect things with Rage Powder. Not that Make It Rain would mind that over from Golden Go on Hyuma's side of the field at all. But you can't ignore the power that supported pieces can put in.
No, absolutely. The Jump Bluff coming in now, taking this Make It Rain, not dealing quite enough damage to knock it out. And it's really nice to see that from Hyuma's side, the grassy terrain is now gone, so the burn damage from this burn on the Ursaluna is slowly going to be chipping it away and helping push towards that final end goal of knocking out this raid boss of a bear, which threatens everything pretty much on Hyuma's team so much.
This Ursaluna's been on the field for a good number of turns here, with its burn just whittling away and away. Seems like a bit of a stalemate between this Golden Go and Ursaluna. Both these trainers wanting to get the advantage, but also having to pivot around carefully with their other pieces to make sure it's the case. The bear staring down the money man, and which is going to be able to cash in all the checks.
Well, that's just the thought. Maybe Ursaluna's looking at Golden Go and thinking, wow, you look like a nice pot of honey. I'm going to take a bite out of that. And we could well see a devastating move like a Headlong Rush coming into this, Golden Go to ensure that we're taking out any sort of Pokemon, whether it's a switch in or not. Tailwind is being set up by the Jump Bluff, so allowing Ursaluna to be a speedy little bear.
Okay.
Ooh, wow,
there is the Earthquake here. That's enough to secure the knockout onto the Incineroar. Jump Bluff taking no damage from that. Ursaluna now with the speed advantage, but has to contend with this Make It Rain, and actually takes that pretty well, even though Ursaluna isn't so known for its special defense. A very well-trained bear there. And now it's just going to be Incineroar rejoining the field from David, down to the final two Pokemon. Golden Go still out on the field for Hyuma, has been since turn 1, but with 2 more Pokemon in the back.
And wow, what a devastating Earthquake that actually was. Removing the Incineroar from the board is just great. There's no more Intimidate cycling. So yes, there is the knowledge of Rillaboom still being in the back for Hyuma, but that reduces the amount of damage mitigation that's going to be put towards this Ursaluna. Not actually knowing that there is the Annihilate in the back is very important information for Hyuma. We can really see taking their time to consider the best option for this, knowing that the Annihilate does have that sash. It will be able to take some hits, so potentially wanting to stall out the Tailwind turns, which David has set up to ensure a clean and safe victory. Grumpy Guy coming back in, meow, getting some damage reduction up onto Hyuma's side of the board with the Rillaboom coming in as well. Double fake out pressure. We love a fake out game.
Yeah, I'll fake out if you fake out, say these trainers in the face of each other here. The Rillaboom, again, we've got to remember that the Charizard terrestrialized very early on in the game and went down. Kind of feels like David's sort of been on the back foot since then, trying to claim back what they possibly can. Hyuma just being very wise and trying to keep cool and calm and collected, knowing that the game isn't over till it's over. Certainly the Ursaluna is not going to be able to take another Grassy Glide. It's not going to be able to take another Make It Rain, even though Golden Go is reducing its own special attack stat here. Fake out very much online, wouldn't be surprised to see the Ursaluna and the Golden Go protecting here.
Excuse me, yes, so we're going to see a very calculated turn here, trying to figure out from David's side what are we most scared of and where are we going to be hitting fake out into, whilst Hyuma knows that both of their Pokemon on the board are going to be able to deal very large amounts of damage, knowing... Oh wow, actually, so we see something very different here with the Tailwind still being up. Incineroar's fake out actually moves quicker into the Rillaboom, not quite allowing Ursaluna to take out the Rillaboom there.
Oh, the Ursaluna hangs on through that Make It Rain, as does the Rillaboom through the facade. Absolutely massive calculations here. Ursaluna around for one more turn. if the Ursaluna has targeted it well, it targeted down into that Rillaboom, and it was able to hang around. Now, the Ursaluna is now very vulnerable, still on even lower HP than it was before, but incredible to see these Pokemon hang around. Is the burn? Yeah, it's still thanks to that grassy terrain. Ursaluna on a sliver of HP here. We're nearly down to a situation where it's just Incineroar against the world.
Yes, we are, and I believe there's 2 turns of Tailwind left, so Huma's really going to have to manage the pace at which this game is going. Tailwind is so important, and yes, absolutely, Huma does have that Grassy Glide potential available from the Rillaboom, but a simple Protect could then lead to something as devastating as seeing that Rillaboom fainting, allowing Incineroar to really be able to just run rampant with some of these Pokemon that are remaining. Yes, Golden Go has committed a terror, but you can't count out the support Pokemon. As you've mentioned, they will still be able to have such a game-changing effect on this match, so it's going to be really curious to see how Huma prioritizes the attacks going into these Pokemon and whether Ursaluna is the problem. We do see that Grassy Glide being clicked into, but we're going to see a switch from the Golden Go, bringing out the Annihilate that has actually been hiding in the back for, I believe, the entirety of this game.
We are getting to the point here where Huma is slowly but surely running out of your time available, so that's something that they'll have to keep a close eye on. Whichever trainer has the Pokemon advantage in terms of numbers would claim the victory if the game were to time out, but Incineroar trying to step on the gas, going for the Flare Blitz right into this Rillaboom. Ursaluna, much safer than it was before, is on very low HP, but with the grassy terrain healing it back a little bit, and then the burn taking away, it's in that state of equilibrium here. The Tailwind up for perhaps another turn, but it's going to be crucial for David to keep an eye on just how many turns of that are remaining. You can't really even go for that Earthquake button and attack everything on the field because the grassy terrain is mitigating that damage too.
Yeah, it's a really awkward position that David has to be in, as there's so many things that David has to prioritise whilst reading where Huma believes that what they need to do to win this game, as the Annihilate needs 2 hits into it to be able to take the KO, but doubling into that slot would leave that Golden Go available to just deal insane amounts of damage. So we are seeing the knockoff coming into the Annihilate there, knocking off its Focus Sash, Broken Focus Sash is all one of the same, and the Headlong Rush going in and taking out that Annihilate there, reducing its stats further, though I don't believe it's living any hits regardless there.
Yeah, certainly not. And now the Incineroar isn't really threatening much damage at all into the Golden Go. Safe to go for a nasty plot here. Knock off. The Golden Go's already eaten its Citrus Berry, so not dealing much damage there. Flare Blitz resisted by the Golden Go thanks to now being a Dragon type. And the Tailwind, David really doing what they could to make the very most of the final turn of Tailwind there so that the Ursaluna could act before the Annihilate. Even though it's just the Golden Go with that nasty plot, I think that's absolutely the correct button to click in this scenario, because of course the Incineroar is also resisting Golden Go's attacks, so the more mileage you can get out of those attacks, the better if you're Huma.
Yes, absolutely. So clicking Protect is very safe there, and then we saw from the last time that the Golden Go hit into the Incineroar slot, it's going to be able to deal massive amounts of damage even though it's resisted, so that buff installing the Tailwind turns out means that Golden Go should actually now be top of the pecking order, so then you can see such a shift in dynamic just from like one small turn and one small adjustment of Pokemon being switched in. Huma's really able to take the lead with this match, and knowing that Incineroar is only going to be able to hit neutrally into the Golden Go with that knockoff, it's going to put David in a real position of thinking, okay, how can I actually end out this game knowing that this Ursaluna is going to get knocked out by Golden Go this turn?
Yeah, and just to be safe, going for the Protect on the previous turn for a little bit more grassy terrain recovery. Ursaluna, shoutouts to Ursaluna, hanging around on the field on such a sliver of HP for so long, but it's finally time for it to hibernate for the winter. Knockoff, dealing respectable damage to that Golden Go, but looks like it would be at least 2 more of those to secure the knockout. And yes, Make It Rain is slowly but surely dwindling away at the special attack stat, but you also have access to the Shadow Ball, which could just drop the special defense on the Incineroar and tidy up the game quicker than before, and only 26 seconds left of your time, so just in time for this Golden Go and for Huma. It will be the Make It Rain, securing the knockout onto Incineroar as we get the 3 minutes notification there. Huma's Golden Go sees out the game.